Hogwarts Legacy has had a lot of controversy surrounding it, but at the end of the day, most people just want to know if the game is good. I am suggesting here a separation of gaming and politics. We don't have some agenda-driven content plan here, though I do have an agenda to join the Ravenclaw house to start my journey. And since Ravenclaws are all about wisdom, I'll have no problem solving these puzzles in a children's game. Right? If you didn't already know, the setting is a school where students go to learn magic. It takes place hundreds of years before the Harry Potter books, and if you like the books, then you will get plenty of nostalgic references to the locations they visit there. I don't personally like the Harry Potter series. I read the first 2 books and saw the first 3 movies, but I can say you can still enjoy the game if you're not a fan of the franchise. I spent about 40 hours in game and completed the main story and most of the side characters' stories, so there's definitely some depth to it, but it is more wide than deep, because there are issues with the game's progression systems and feature bloat. So let's go more into detail about the pros and cons in my full review of the game without spoilers. Let's start out with the graphics. The environments and scenery are next generation, and it really helps to accent the differences between the beautiful plains, the creepy forests, or the brilliant castles. There's a lot of work put into these small details, even if sometimes they don't make sense. I had some issues with frames dropping on my NVIDIA 1070 graphics card, but I resolved them by just updating the drivers. Almost everything in the game has an animation to it. The paintings on the walls come to life with the characters in them, all the spells have satisfying but clear effects, and even some of the most meaningless actions have animations, like stepping on a leech or someone practicing magic by levitating a crumpled piece of paper. And it really helps to immerse you in the bizarre fantasy of the magical setting. The visuals are definitely one of the stronger points of the game. The gameplay also felt great. All of your spells have multiple uses in and out of combat, like the Accio spell, which is used to grab distant objects or move puzzle pieces, but it can also be used to pull enemies off of ledges so you can hit them in close combat. You get intimately familiar with the purposes of each spell and learn which one you need to solve a situation, or how to combine your spells together to create more powerful combos to finish off your enemies. While some spells are definitely better than others, they have cooldowns to them, and certain enemies have weaknesses to specific spell types or can be exposed by using a spell to counter them. You can check out these weaknesses in the monster roster in your collections, and to be honest, there isn't a wide variety of enemies to fight. You'll often be fighting the same enemy types over and over throughout the game, and it can become a bit repetitive. But the fact that the combat is so satisfying and reactive, it wasn't that much of an issue to me. While I played the game on hard mode, and it provided a sufficiently challenging experience that helped me to improve at the game's mechanics, it was still very accessible. And while not using many consumables or optimizing my equipment every chance I got, I figured out that the enemy AI was not the best and could be easily exploited. Did you really think my character, whose name was Vincent Larson, wouldn't go for a stealthy rogue strategy? While not perfect, I still think the gameplay of the puzzles, the combat, and the seamless transition between riding your broom and running out in the open world are generally some of the best experiences. But here is where the game starts to decline. The reason I didn't engage in consumables or gear optimization that much is because the progression and crafting systems are either not fun to engage with or not worth your time. It's fun to find secrets within a dungeon using your spells and platforming, but when you get flooded with pieces of loot that most of the time will be worse than your current item or only marginally better, I ended up skipping chests because I knew that it would just clog my inventory, which gets full very quickly unless you do some Merlin trials out in the open world, or I would get a +2 upgrade and have to reskin the new piece of gear to the appearance I wanted. Vincent's favorite class was astronomy, so I wore the astral robe the entire playthrough, and rarely upgraded it, and was happy like that. You pick up so much useless gear that it feels like I'm doing chores in an MMO, and that's not something a single player game should strive to reach. By the 20-hour mark of the game, I was still experiencing tutorials where you learn some new feature like catching animals, building your house, or unlocking another new collection. And when you have to attend a class that doesn't have any meaningful story to it, you literally sit through a training montage with no dialogue because they couldn't figure out a scene for it. There's definitely plenty to do in the game, but it's shallow. Despite the darker tone, this is ultimately a children's game, so don't overthink the puzzles or plan to make very meaningful choices. The dialogue and voice acting are great, but your dialogue options don't provide many differences, or at least not discernible differences. There's a script that each quest plays out, and your dialogue does not change it. It only changes the response you will get when you eventually reach the same conclusion. Your choice is not in how the quest progresses, but whether or not you want to progress the quest. There are definitely some meaningful quests, like Sebastian's story, which depicts the moral struggle of wizards and witches, or Poppy's story, which provides more interesting lore on the different species and cultures of the wizarding world, but these will ultimately be the same experience every single time. This means that the game doesn't have much replay value to it. It would be really cool if you could make a Slytherin character and then choose all of the options where you keep the quest item and piss off the quest givers, or a Hufflepuff playthrough where you do every single quest and give up all the rewards because you just like helping people. But there would be minimal differences there. I think the game would feel much better if it didn't give you as many dialogue choices, just let you choose which quests to do, because the illusion of choice becomes very clear even on your first playthrough. Because they went for more of a keep collecting things after you finish the game slant instead of replayability options, I can't say this game will be a true classic, but there are still different playstyles you can specialize in and employ, like whether you want to use stealth, plants, potions, dark arts, or manipulations. But really, you have the ability to use all of these and try out their potential in one single playthrough. I think Hogwarts Legacy deserves a 7 out of 10 because it had stunning graphics and great combat that facilitated the magical feel, but the systems of the game made it hard for me to want to explore the open world without a quest attached to it because of its chore-like design. But if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and clicking the thumbs up, and leave a comment below which game you'd like to see me play next. I was thinking maybe Morrowind or Disco Elysium, but we'll see about that, and I will see you all next time.